Here are the Isley Brothers' Top 5 Slow Jams, presented by Soulful Charts. The Isley Brothers are one of the greatest soul music bands of all time. I'm a 70s baby. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, a part of Generation X. I was introduced to a lot of the 60s R&B music and 70s funk music through samples I heard on hip-hop records. In fact, two of hip-hop's most legendary MCs, Ice Cube and Biggie Smalls, sampled the music of the Isley Brothers to achieve their biggest hits. I never DJ'd, but I'm an old soul. And when I was in my teens, I loved digging in the crates, as they say, discovering old school R&B, funk, and soul music. I also enjoyed listening to nightly Quiet Storm slow jam programs on the radio, as much as I enjoyed listening to hip-hop mixtapes. While I realized the Isley Brothers came up in the rock and roll era and established themselves largely through soulful rock and roll hits and then irresistible funk jams, I was attracted to their slow jams. The Isley Brothers, in my mind, are the kings of the ballads. This album, Beautiful Ballads, is a great collection of the best love songs in the Isley Brothers catalog. There are 2 volumes. It's a must-have for any fan of soulful slow jams. When CDs were still a thing, I purchased my copy at the time of its release. The collection received heavy play in my ride and in my crib, and it still does. It is arguably the greatest collection of love songs by a single artist ever compiled. With that said, once I decided to start a top 5 slow jam series based on Billboard R&B chart history, I knew I absolutely had to make an episode highlighting the Isley Brothers' Beautiful Ballads. So let's jump on in. First up, number 5, Contagious, featuring vocals by singer Shantae Moore. Contagious was the first single of the Isley Brothers' 28th album, Eternal. The song debuted at number 59 on the R&B charts on June 23, 2001. It took 6 weeks to move into the top 10, jumping up 4 spots from number 14 to number 10. Contagious spent 11 weeks in the top 10. The ballad peaked at number 3 on August 25, 2001. The song was in the 3rd spot on the charts for 2 separate weeks. Contagious took 10 weeks to reach its number 3 peak position. The ballad peaked at number 19 on the pop charts. Next up, number 4, Smooth Sailing. Smooth Sailing was the first single and title track of the Isley Brothers' 24th album of the same name. The song debuted at number 80 on the R&B charts on May 16, 1987. After just a few weeks on the charts, it jumped up 9 spots from number 22 to number 13. And then a couple of weeks later, it moved into the top 10, jumping up 4 spots from number 11 to number 7. The ballad took 7 weeks to reach the top 10. Smooth Sailing spent 6 weeks in the top 10. The ballad peaked at number 3 on July the 11th, 1987. The record took 9 weeks to reach its number 3 peak position. Smooth Sailing was in the 3rd spot on the R&B charts for 3 consecutive weeks. The ballad did not chart on the Billboard Hot 100, which is the pop charts. Number 3, Spend the Night. Spend the Night was the first single and title track of the Isley Brothers' 25th album of the same name. The song debuted at number 81 on the R&B charts on June 24, 1989. Spend the Night jumped up 6 spots into the top 10 from number 14 to number 8. It took 8 weeks to move into the top 10. The ballad peaked at number 3 on August 26, 1989. The record took 10 weeks to reach its number 3 peak position. Spend the Night was in the 3rd spot on the R&B charts for 3 consecutive weeks. The ballad did not chart on the Billboard Hot 100. Spend the Night is ranked higher than Smooth Sailing because though both ballads peaked at number 3 for 3 consecutive weeks, Spend the Night spent 3 more weeks in total on the R&B charts than Smooth Sailing. Next up, number 2, Between the Sheets. Between the Sheets was the first single and title track of the Isley Brothers' 22nd album of the same name. The song debuted at number 59 on the R&B charts on April 9th, 1983. After just 4 weeks on the charts, it jumped up 15 spots from number 27 to number 12. And a week later, it moved into the top 10, jumping up 5 spots from number 12 to number 7. The ballad took just 5 weeks to reach the top 10. Between the Sheets spent 9 weeks in the top 10. The ballad peaked at number 3 on May 14th, 1983. The record took just 6 weeks to reach its number 3 peak position. Between the Sheets was in the 3rd spot on the R&B charts for 5 consecutive weeks. The ballad peaked at number 101 on the pop charts. And now, the number 1 slow jam by the Isley Brothers, based on Billboard R&B chart data. Don't Say Goodnight, It's Time for Love. Don't Say Goodnight was the first single of the Isley Brothers' 18th album, Go All the Way. The song debuted at number 54 on the R&B charts on March 8th, 1980. After just 3 weeks on the charts, the ballad jumped up 9 spots from number 24 to number 15. A couple of weeks later, Don't Say Goodnight moved into the top 10, jumping up another 9 spots from number 12 to number 3. The ballad took just 5 weeks to reach the top 10. Don't Say Goodnight spent 9 weeks in the top 10. The ballad peaked at number 1 on April 19th, 1980. The record took just 7 weeks to reach the top of the R&B charts. Don't Say Goodnight was the number 1 song on the R&B charts for 4 consecutive weeks. The ballad peaked at number 39 on the pop charts. Now, I got love for all the 5 records in this ranking, but I must say, I can name at least a dozen more Isley Brothers slow jams that are worthy of being in this top 5. That's how deep their bench is, so to speak, when it comes to their signature beautiful ballads. R&B's main chart has always been primarily driven by dance, funk, up-tempo grooves. Most of the Isley Brothers' biggest hits were rock and roll and later funk jams spanning multiple decades, which just shows the scope of the wide-ranging and long-lasting reach of this legendary group. It's worth noting that many of the Isley Brothers' slow jams weren't released singles and therefore didn't chart, and several of the ballads that were released performed well on the R&B charts, but just didn't peak into the top 5 or top 10. This top 5 list is based solely on the data from R&B's main song chart. The Isley Brothers' beautiful ballads have always been a staple on Quiet Storm radio programs, as well as slow jam streaming playlists these days. If you had to put together a list based on the records you love the most, what would be your Isley Brothers top 5 slow jams? Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button and leave your thoughts in the comments. Have a soulful music topic you would like to see featured on Soulful Charts? Let me know and maybe I'll give it a go in an upcoming episode. I encourage you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell in order to be notified when new videos get released. And one more thing, share this channel with other connoisseurs of soul music. Peace.